So my talk today is going to be about the role of AI insurance and about the BA's perspective from it. On the agenda today, I'm going to have an introduction. Uh, then I will shortly describe what the main challenges of the domain are, and then I will, sorry, then I will speak about the different types of applications of different types of AIs in the insurance domain. And then we will have some time for a Q&A. My first case is going to focus on the custom trained machine learning models, and the second case is going to focus on LLM applications, especially the GPT-based models. So who am I? I am the BA unit lead of intelligent automation practice of EPAM Georgia. I have more than 6 years of experience in RPA and automation. My past 3 years were mostly focused on the AI projects, and since most of them were in the insurance domain, that's going to be the main focus point for me as I share my experience. So what is and why is AI so demanded in the insurance domain? It's mainly because of two factors. Number one, it's because some countries have very fragmented ecosystems. Insurance is a product that by concept means that it has to deal with massive amounts of data, and it usually doesn't help when you have very outdated systems to deal with those, with that much information. And when I say outdated systems, I've seen very big insurance companies still use terminal-based applications as their legacy systems, which don't even have UIs and were built somewhere in the late 80s. And it's also coupled with another issue that they use too many systems. And that's caused by two main factors. First of all, it's because the insurance products can be quite different from each other. If you compare a car insurance, for example, with health insurance, it's completely different product. So some companies prefer to deal with different products and they group them into separate systems. And that causes a variation within the systems that they use. And the other reason why they have too many systems is especially true for the bigger companies, which have been on the market for quite a while, because they have gone through a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And with the added complexity of the baggage that came in from the acquired companies, they really have a lot of systems that do the same thing. And this creates lacking direct distribution channels, because it's very hard to maintain a seamless unified front when you have this much division in the back end. Now, the other main factor, what's causing the issues, is the complexity of the insurance as a product by itself. There's usually quite complex regulations, and contracts have a lot of legal wording that are hard to understand. And some organizations are quite blatantly abusing this. And customers have a feeling of very low protection because some companies even reach more than 90% of denied claims rates. So in countries where these two factors are dominant, we've seen a move to what's called the broker system. Now, in a broker system, the main difference is that the client doesn't go directly to the insurance company, and instead they're going to reach out to brokers who specialize in the insurance domain. This way, the clients take off their responsibility to deal with the complications that usually comes with directly dealing with the insurance companies. And the main thought process is when, as a client, I decide to take a new policy, I don't go to one broker, right? Because most of the time, I would like to have a comparison. So I would have a discussion with multiple brokers to have some kind of options to weigh. But the issue is that the brokers also have the same exact thought process. The brokers, when they receive requests, are going to forward it to a lot of different insurance companies because they also think about getting the best offer for themselves. Now you can see how this escalates very fast. because in this kind of environment, you're going to see that the insurance companies are never able to standardize their inputs. What happens is they did try to standardize their inputs a lot of times. They built integration points, they built very beautiful platforms for the brokers where the brokers could enter very standardized information, but the brokers are not accepting that. And common response from the brokers is that I'm not going to do that for you because I have to send the same email request to 40 different insurance companies. So you either take it or leave it. I don't have the time to deal with your specific forms. And the insurance companies have, as they compete with each other for the policies, they do take it, and that's what creates the status quo. My first case is a very good example of what kind of issues can happen when you have a process like this. Imagine a very big insurance company that has to deal with about 20,000 emails that need to be sorted from the collective inboxes of the underwriters. The main goal is to sort these emails into different types of requests because different requests like endorsements, you can have claims or new submission requests. These have to be sent down to different queues of processing, and different teams handle those. The normal automation that was being used was a keyword-based system, but because these types of requests usually have a lot of overlapping wording, we had both high rate of false positives and false negatives. The overall accuracy rate was about 40%, which was very low, and that meant that a lot of underwriter time was wasted sorting through these emails manually. Now, if as a BA, you are tasked to optimize this process, what are your options and how do you handle it? My recommendation here is to be prepared to deliver value. As a modern day BA, you're not just there to gather the requirements, you're expected to deliver more. And that includes being able to deliver value to the company. And more, I'm seeing opportunities and vacancies where the companies are expecting the BA to take on the role of the product owner as well. And that kind of makes sense because a BA is supposed to be the person who best understands the needs of the stakeholders, and the PO is the person who should be able to deliver on those. So merging these two roles is happening more and more often. I have three main recommendations to be prepared to deliver value. First of all, you have to understand the technology. You have to keep up with the latest trends and raise your awareness in the IT industry. You should see what's in demand and analyze why it's in demand. And once you start doing that, you will be able to start identifying what's going to work best in your domain and your specific use case. And that allows you to become the better problem solver, which is my second recommendation. So you're not expected to be a solution architect, but you should be able to design solutions. Once you analyze the problems, you should be able to look at the whole process and identify it as a chain of steps. And then you should be able to look at every step and decide what type of best practices to apply for each step. For example, you can look at a process and make suggestions. Let's do step number 1 and 2 with OCR technology. Let's do the next steps with AI. Next one with RPA. And that's how you create value. Now, my other recommendation is going to be never to be afraid to touch new technology. For this specific project, I was the one who recommended using a new AI model to deal with this because I didn't see any other way of optimizing this solution. And the challenge here that I saw was that even though I didn't know how to work on the ML model, I was suggesting to create something new, and I had to learn how to train the model and how to select the optimal data for training for it. And if it weren't for these three factors, I would never be able to devise a solution that worked this good. I devised this process flow, which included OCR and regex for extraction of the information from the emails. Then we used the AI for classification. We used the RPA bot to chain this entire solution. And at the end, the information went into human in the loop for final approval. And this gave us 95% accuracy rate, which was a great improvement for the previous 40%. Not all cases are going to be this simple. My next case is about a much more complex project that utilizes AI. This one, the purpose of this project is to automate the policy submission requests. That's when a broker is requesting to register a new policy for their client. Now, this solution is at the center of the intake for a very large structure, which has more than 40 different LOBs, and it utilizes a lot, and it's hooked up with a lot of different systems, with more than 5 or 6 legacy systems. It has 15 different APIs that it's hooked up for. So it's a very, very complex hybrid environment. And the changes, because of these variations, changes are happening too fast. Now, how can a BA deal with this kind of environment? And here I was able to identify 3 main challenges which I want to share with you. First of all, it's the very dynamic environments and how to adapt to them. When you see these complex hybrid system with such modular components that have a lot of variation, you're going to see changes that come very frequently. You have a lot of dependencies with the systems, and since every software development moved into a more agile or a DevOps structure, the updates are becoming even more and more frequent. But the with usual software development, updates usually meant bug fixes and improvements. But that's not going to be always the case for AI solutions, because updates to the AIs mean that LLM usually becomes better overall, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to improve your specific use case. And I have a very recent example on this. We had GPT used. GPT had an issue with parsing one of the required fields to process the new submission requests, and I handed over those improvement requirements to the dev team that should have been that shouldn't gone live at the end of the development cycle, but somewhere in the middle of the month, OpenAI released an update. And that update already dealt with the issue that we were trying to fix, but it broke another field. So in a very short time, we had already a fix that was irrelevant and a new issue that had to be dealt as fast as possible. So how can a BA keep up in this kind of environment? And my recommendation is that you keep the AI requirements simple. Now, it has to be clear, and you're going to try to achieve your goal, and you have to put that down in the requirements, what your goal is, but expect that the changes and tweaking to the prompts is going to be a continuous process. My second recommendation here is going to be, again, to be the problem solver and learn to optimize these complex structures. Now, what I had to do was that I had to determine the weak points of the AI, and I had to separate them create separate workflows for them. I had to research what the bottlenecks were, and we identified that AI was struggling with some of the forms, especially those that were hand-filled. At that time, ABI and Vision AI performed much better on those cases. So I created a double workflow that we would use GPT for parsing everything else, but for those specific forms, we would use Abby. And this combination of two workflows gave us very good results together. And my point here again is raise your IT industry awareness, because you have to make it work. And if I hadn't researched these technologies, I would never be able to deliver a suggestion that would improve the existing process. And the last thing that was very interesting for me to learn is how to deal with the prompt requirements. My main recommendation here is that every BA should be capable of prompt engineering, because once you know how the prompt is built, what responses you expect for each type of prompt, then you become better at delivering the prompt requirements for the developers. But also, I would recommend not to become a prompt engineer, because as I mentioned earlier, the prompt requirements and optimizing the prompt to an ideal level is going to take a lot of tweaks and iterations. So if you are not specifically required to be a prompt engineer, don't do that. Although I wouldn't be surprised if BAs are going to be requested to be also prompt engineers in the near future as well. And my last recommendation here is, as a good practice, you can start maintaining a prompt library, which means that with your usual requirements, also start adding some prompt samples and prompt version control. Now, if you do have to work on some prompts and some engineering, there's some prompt engineering, then I have a couple of recommendations for that too. First of all, you have to deliver well-tiered prompts. Your first tier has to be your simplest and the clearest prompt that you can come up with. For example, find and extract the insurance policy number from this text. This is specific enough. Most likely, you're not going to need to get any more information than that. The whole magic of the AI is that you don't have to explain what the policy number is to the AI model or what 4 different formats it can be. If you give it this much information, then you're basically using your AI model as a regex extractor. You don't need this. Be simple and be just specific enough, because, for example, if you have to specify what format to return your requested information into, be sure to specify that. As an example, extract the claim date, return it in the specific format. And lastly, sometimes it is a good idea to give your AI model some context, especially if you are feeding it an amalgamation of texts of different documents in a single query, or you're trying to extract a lot of fields. In this case, you can add some simple context, like you are provided an insurance claim request sent by a broker to underwriter on behalf of the client. Then you specify all the fields that you need to be extracted and the format that you want it to. This way, your prompts are going to be both cost-effective and accurate. Now, is it all good? Unfortunately not. This is my favorite example about biases that you can expect. If you see on the left, it's all the different watch faces from different watch makes, but they have something that they all share, and it's the time that they display. And it's almost always around 10 hours and 9 minutes. Now, why is that? Because through a marketing study, the watch companies found out that the most appealing look a watch can have is this tick shape that they make at this specific time. So all of the watch companies for years have been using the same format to post a picture of their watches. Now, this created a very interesting bias on the internet, where almost 90% of the watch images that you can find are going to display the same time. And you can't, at the moment, force any AI, any generative AI to show any type different than that. It doesn't matter how much you specify the prompt to show your specific times. This is the prompt that I did, and it's still showing the same time. Now, the same issue is going to be true for language models as well, because you have to understand that when we speak with AI, we're not actually speaking with human intelligence. And what the information it retrieves are not sentences, but probability-based word structures. And because of that, there can be significant biases based on the articles and the documents that were used to train the language model on. For example, if your LM contains 1,000 articles which are about why coffee is good for you, and you try to make it summarize an article which says that coffee is bad for you, then it's very likely going to hallucinate and include extra information which you didn't want. And since we reached hallucination, it's also a very interesting finding that the recent report shows that the most powerful LLMs hallucinate the most. This is the GPT-O line, which is its most advanced reasoning model. And this one has the highest capacity. If you compare this, the hallucination rates here to the GPT that we use on their website, that one has less than 3% hallucination rate. But this is supposed to be the most advanced model, and these have very high hallucination rates. And the same was true with every different model that tried releasing a reasoning model. This is why one of the main issues with LLMs is that it's sometimes too general. So the global focus is going to shift into optimizing the LLMs. And for that, these are the emerging technologies that are going to be used. It's RAGs, LangChains, fine-tuning, and more focused SLMs instead of using very large LLMs. So my recommendation to any BA or anyone who is going to focus on AI, I would recommend to learn more about these emerging technologies, because once the initial phase of AI hype implementation is over, everyone is going to reach a stage when they have to optimize their use cases. And these are the technologies that are going to be used. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Hi, everybody. I had a question regarding to using AIs. For example, when you mentioned the example of sorting and filtering the emails, how would you ensure that the information you use AI for analyzing the third parties on behalf of AI, for example, do not use for their own interests? Thanks.
Can you repeat the last part?
Yeah, sure. For example, the third parties behind the AIs and programs that we use for filtering and sorting the emails do not use this information for their own interest.
Sure, that's actually a very good question, because we had the same dilemma when on that specific case, and the only reason why we didn't select OpenAI at that stage and go with the we went with the locally built custom machine learning model was because at that point the data that AI uses was very vaguely approached. It was really very freshly released. So there was a lot of concern from the business how to approach the data information. And now more and more it's getting to be regulated a little more. Even GDPR standards are being applied to AI. So I think in the near future, this is going to be only improved. But some companies that are still avoiding GPT and other kinds of LLM applications do list the privacy as one of their main primary concerns.
Hi again. I am recently starting working on the project. What could be your recommendations for me to catch up on the process project? What could I don't know how to formulate it. What tips could you give me to excel at what I will be doing?
Sure. First
don't
of
know.
all, I would recommend that you get familiar with the type of the AI that is being used, because there are multiple different types of AIs. There are custom trained ML models, which have a lot of different subclasses between that. There are LLMs, which are the larger language models that has the biggest hype at the moment. There are also deep learning models, which are one of the most complex because they have a layered approach, and it's hardest to deal with. And all of these different applications are going to have different challenges. So my main recommendation to you would be to first understand what type of AI is going to be used, and then get yourself familiar with that. Any other questions? Are we good on the time?
Yeah, we still have time if somebody's hesitating to ask another question.
I'm Nick. So it was very interesting how you handle lots of emails and ordinary data to extract some client requests. Yes. Now, are these extractions are up 100 accurate, 100% accurate? And if not, how do you handle this false positives or false negatives if the AI does not process well some requests? Thank you.
The main thing to consider for AIs is that you will have a different perspective on what the KPIs are for the AI. AI is predictability based or probability based models. So the acceptance criteria for it is going to be different. With normal software development, you're going to write a rule that for an X income, you generate Y output. And that's always going to be the case. The same expectation is not going to apply for AI. So you have different KPIs for AIs, and it's usually going to be different ranges of the accuracy, and it's going to be optimized based on what kind of a project that you're working on. For some, it can be like general accuracy, and you can have a certain threshold to meet that criteria. For some types of processes, false positives are going to be more important than false negatives. Sometimes it's going to be vice versa. For example, if you have to identify a specific request which was missed, that's a false negative. And it means that you, for this specific insurance case, a missed actual request is a bigger problem to deal with than a request that was falsely identified. So you can just disregard that one, but you potentially lost a client if you had a false negative. It depends on the applications, but you're going to have these certain thresholds, and you're also going to have sometimes weighted averages and F1 score, which determine what the acceptable criteria are, and you're going to work with the business to identify what's most important for them.